songbook came out, Little Red Songbook came out, and I took this woman who I write about in my book, The Coolest Way to Kill Yourself, Zia, and yeah, we saw Momus and Kahimi Kari and Tug. Tug was
Oh
amazing. The
my
first time I ever
God.
saw Tug, and he's just there, and his that little like the keyboard is just like. I think he had an orange where he like plugged it in or something.
Oh my
Um,
God. That's
uh,
amazing.
but Kahimi Kari comes out with
Yeah.
Momus, and they just do duets and stuff like they do "I Am a Kid" together. And
Oh
what's
my
funny,
God. What a show. Yeah. Did she, oh, she is
isn't it?
beautiful, right?
Just
I can imagine.
magnificent.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
here's the
she's got
thing.
this baby doll voice and she's got like, and she's obviously a beautiful, beautiful woman, model.
Here's the wild thing about it. So I'm going through a heartache at the time. It's Little Red Songbook came out. I think it's like right before the towers fell, right before Folktronica, right?
Yeah. It was
And
like 96, 97.
yeah. And
So, yeah.
the woman I was with, who I used to go to like big concerts to. We saw this like we would go see the Charlatans and we go to raves together. Like the Stone Roses, all this stuff. And
Mm.
then I bring her to this, and she's like,
Did she,
"What do
did
I
she have,
do to
and
this?"
did she have any idea about Momus or
No,
Little Red
no, she
Songbook?
knew. Here's the thing. She liked the Smiths.
Okay.
But what's funny is she goes, what do you do to this? Because we used to go to shows where you're dancing and you're dancing, you're doing what do you do to this? I always that question always lingered in my mind. What do you do to Momus music? And the thing is, I figured it out after all these years. You get inspired.
That's
You
it.
get inspired. And actually, Momus music and other things inspired you and I to come together. One of the things was the best show with Tom Scharpling. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nicholas Tannick, and this is your Kinky Friends. We love writing. We're authors. We're creative types, musicians, poets, authors, all that wonderful things, and we're kinky as can be. Everything we talk about is consensual between adults. We're adults. We're doing adult things, role play, consensual things. We're being creative. Don't judge. That's why you're alone. That's why you're sad, because you're a judgy asshole. Don't be one. I'm serious. Like seriously, take a look at your life and like see how judgy you are. Like take a moment. Let's have a good show, ladies and gentlemen. Andy Mascola. Oh my God, my friend Andy Mascola, welcome aboard. Part of the YKF Author Circle, host of People Are the Enemy podcast, and an extremely prolific author, extremely prolific indie author. Yes, a fellow indie author, one of us. Please welcome Andy Mascola. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right, Nicholas. Good to see you. Thanks for having me. I am so impressed by what you've built. This is incredible.
Thank you.
Is it 7 years or 8 years? Do we determine? You said
I think it's 8.
or
I think let's go for 8. Let's go. I started this. I started Your Kinky Friends, the podcast, really just to promote this book, Your Kinky Friends, because when I wrote The Coolest Way to Kill Yourself, this book, um, the publishing company lumped me in with 50 Shades of Grey. So I was going on blog tours and touring and going to bookstores, and everything's like 50 Shades. You're going to be rich. 50 Shades. I didn't write the book to be rich. I wrote the book because I had a story to tell, and there's this woman who passed away who I loved very much. Her story should have been told, and I felt like I had obligated to tell it. So as a kinky person, 50 Shades of Grey just wasn't cutting it. It's a bad representation of the book. I mean, of the lifestyle, the culture. So I wanted to represent the culture. And I also wanted to show that I have credibility. I wanted to show that I know what I'm writing about. And I sure as hell do. So I wanted to just start interviewing people. And then I just wanted to be like, it really comes from a sense of being a part of something and being a part of the scene. If you really think about it, I think that kink, all of it, stems from loneliness. We need to connect with people in some way. It doesn't have to be sex. It doesn't have to be, it could be art, it could be writing, it could be music, it could be sports, whatever. But it's all about connection, and that's so that's why I wanted to do it, to get my word out, because in the author world, you you need to promote yourself and you need to get it out. So thank you very much for. I'm sorry to go on this rant. Let's talk about you, Andy. What's inspiring you these days?
Oh, these days I'm really into watching this guy. What the hell is his name? Of course, I forget his name. Well, I'll tell you what. The most recent thing that I was inspired by was, and it has nothing to do with kink. Unfortunately, I wish I could work it into that. But I read Salman Rushdie's book Knife. Do you know this book?
I'm familiar with it. Did not read it.
Oh
I
my
have not read it.
God. I think I read it, I think about 4 days, 5 days it took me because I just loved it. But it's about his assassination attempt that happened in 2022 when he was in Chautauqua, New York at this
Yeah.
amphitheater and was attacked by a member of the audience. It was like a radicalized Muslim extremist. And he was stabbed 15 times. Speaking of gentleman with one eye, he now only has one eye, lost an eye, and lived, and then basically lived to write about it with this book Knife, and it was just fantastic. And I was like, oh my gosh, just beautifully written. And it's you think like a story about somebody getting stabbed and then surviving that kind of attack would be, morbid and tough in terms of its content and in terms of the details, but like he managed to make it like a love story, believe it or not, and a story about just living. And moreover, and probably a good way to bring it around to what you represent and what your kinky friends represent, and that's anti-censorship. The whole reason that there was a fatwa against Salman Rushdie back in the late 80s was because he'd written that book, The Satanic Verses, and because Muslim extremists took offense to it and tried to assassinate him and anybody associated with that book. And then, but he has never stopped. And at this point, basically a literary hero, I think,
I'm so glad you brought that up because I feel that way. Like when I was writing The Coolest Way to Kill Yourself, I felt like I was a survivor in the fact that not only did I survive the relationship, but I survived drug addiction and alcoholism enough to create something. I felt like that was worthy of, like I had to do it. You know what I mean? Like worthy of a book. And I mean, striving to stay alive is a fundamental part of life, right? So writing about it, anything like that, and dealing with it, unpacking it, everything that happened before and after. That's why I'm writing my book. My new book is all about the liver transplant, but it's not just about the liver transplant. It's about the people who got me through it. You know what I mean? It's not just like wasn't just surgery and drugs or nutrition. It was people. Yeah. Speaking of people, why are people the enemy? You have a podcast
Great
called
question.
People Are the Enemy.
I do. And it was, in all honesty, Nicholas, it came from a misreading. I was at a Goodwill looking through vinyl albums. Had I told you the story?
No, you haven't. Tell the story, please.
And as anybody who's ever gone through records or vinyl records at a Goodwill, you're going to find a lot of shit. You'll find a lot of Lawrence Welk and Mantovani and just garbage. And I don't mind calling it garbage. But one record that
call it what it is.
You'll occasionally find some gems. I found the Beastie Boys' License to Ill, like a
nice.
Yeah, that was a nice find in a record in a Goodwill shop. But one record I came across had these beatific, smiling, happy people on the front of it. And I looked at the title, and this might give you a good idea of where my mindset was at. But the first time I read the title, I said, "People Are the Enemy." Well, that's a weird title for an album with these happy people on it. And then I read it again, and it said, "People Are the Energy." And I thought, son of a bitch. Well, but People Are the Enemy would be a great title for something. Maybe that would make a good podcast title. So yeah, I don't know if I believe people are the enemy. I'm a people person,
It's all perspective, but I think of Mark Twain. The famous quote that he has, I believe it's Mark Twain. At least I was told it was Mark Twain. Let's put it that way. Professor Rittmeister, William Patterson University. He said, "Hell is other people."
Yes.
So do you believe, I wanted to seriously, do you believe, I mean, I sometimes very much believe hell is other people. But also, I think heaven is other people as well. You know?
I think so. I agree. There's a few variations on that I like, and one of them is I think attributed to R. Crumb, the artist Robert
Yeah, yeah.
Crumb,
Yeah.
who said, "Hell is other people, but hell is also yourself." And the other one, I think, may be attributed, strangely enough, to Momus. Um, I think, at least, I think I might have read it in one of his blogs. Is hell is other people's music.
That's true. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
It's
Yeah.
so true. You'll never. It's so hard to find somebody that you're compatible musically with, or if you if
Oh,
you
without a
if
doubt.
if there's some overlap with somebody in your life as far as like a niche artist, it's such a special thing, and I think you and I share an affinity both for Momus,
Yeah.
and that's rare. I don't think there's anybody else I know. There's nobody in like real life space that I know who knows who the hell Momus is. When I got to talk with him, it was like the thrill of a lifetime for me. It was
Yeah.
meant so much, but it was like this thing that really didn't mean anything to anybody else in my immediate vicinity,
No,
because
you
he's
know
so
what? It meant
niche.
something to me. I've been a huge
Oh,
fan
I
of Momus.
appreciate that. Yeah.
We're gonna talk about Momus, but let's get on
Yeah.
to
Sorry.
your podcast. So your podcast, what was your goal of the podcast? For example, we were talking
Oh,
about your kinky friends, and part of the goal was to um, promote the book, promote my books, to set up me as a character, basically, as a become. Momus talks about that a lot. The longing to become. You know, so Nicholas Tanning was my way of becoming, so to speak. Um, and then it grew into something else. I come from the rave scene, so like the party aspect and just connecting and talking to people, and then promotion, and then there was the whole aspect of exploiting people. I don't want to exploit anybody, and then a lot of the kink scene, the BDSM scene, is all about exploitation. It's about using other people, and I don't want to do that. I want a space where people can not only express themselves but not feel used, unless they want to be used consensually. You know what I mean? So, like, what was your goal for people as the enemy? People are the enemy.
I think much like yourself, my goal was promotion, and it still is.
Yes.
What had happened was I started promoting my books on Facebook, and I got this advertisement on my author's page saying for $5 um, a month we can help boost your this post, and it was like an advertisement for one of my books. And I thought to myself, $5, I wonder how much it would cost to do a podcast. So I looked into it, and Libsyn, that liberated syndication hosting site of podcasts, gives you 100 minutes of podcasting, or did at the time, for $5. And I was like, well, it's the same price. I might as well start a podcast and promote my own stuff. And I can do 4 25-minute episodes a
Yeah.
month and just talk about my books, and then interview people that I'm interested in. And then I'll have created something, and basically for the same amount of money that Facebook's looking to help me advertise with, but I'll be doing something creative at the same time, and kind of like, much like yourself, building something like a promotional tool. I you know
Um,
I'm
I want
sorry,
to
what were
say,
you gonna
I
say?
don't want to interrupt you for a
No,
second.
go
Just
ahead, please.
fuck Facebook. Like,
Yeah,
seriously,
fuck
like,
Facebook. Yeah.
like, first of all, they will take your money, and it's not worth it. The
Yes.
boost posts, I know so many indie authors who've been cleaned out of their money totally, because they said they do the boost post, and it just keeps on doing it and redoing
Oh,
it.
it's
Next
like
thing
an
you know,
auto renewal.
yeah, yeah. So Facebook can kiss my ass,
Yeah.
and hopefully they'll pay me money for kissing it. You know,
I I was going to say, I started an author's page, if only because an indie author relative of mine, who who writes under a pseudonym, so I won't divulge who that is, but she'd said, look, if you're going to self promote, you really do need a Facebook author page. And I thought to myself, well, as much as I don't want to do it, I'll do it, and I've done it. And but it's obviously, fuck Facebook. Yeah, I agree. But
yeah.
I'm on there. I suppose fuck Twitter at this point too, or X, or whatever the hell you
Oh
want to
god, it's
call it
just
today.
we'll
Yeah.
talk about the platforms too. We got so many questions to go on. So let's talk about the people you interviewed. You've interviewed some of the people that I've talked with. I've interviewed in the past. Momus, Anna Biller, Anna Biller, excuse me, are two of exceptionally creative people. I mean, wow, these two people have that fire to light inside of them. The not only the imagination they have, but how they can execute it, and how like when they come out with something, whether it's music or a book or or a film or what, like anything, it's impressive. I want to see it, and that I think is the beauty, is the mark of a true artist. So, tell us about the people you interviewed.
Well, yeah, I did interview Momus, as I mentioned. That was a thrill of a lifetime, if only because I've been such a huge fan for so long, and I'd been trying to get him on the show. I think I might have been using an old email address, which may have been why he wasn't responsive. So I'm partially to blame for that. But also, I suppose I was looking for a good opportunity. And with this Quietism album, his latest one, I really enjoyed it, and I saw it as sort of a return to form in terms of his music. And there are albums like Momus albums, and I know that you know his discography pretty well, that are more niche than others in terms of concept or in terms of construct. And then there are Momus albums where it feels like he's made something that's may cross over to an extent with fans of, like you mentioned, the Smiths, or fans of Bell and Sebastian, or just indie music fans, who are fans of more popular or prominent indie acts. And I felt like this Quietism album that he'd made was one of those albums. And I thought this would be a good opportunity. And he'd
I was
happened
still
to.
listening to Ballyhoo, actually.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about Momus. One of the people I wanted that you interviewed who blows my mind is Anna Biller, or Anna
Yes.
Biller.
Yes,
Excuse
Anna
me.
Biller. Yeah, I was very fortunate to get her to speak with. She was wonderful. I was.
The
I'd
Love
read
Witch.
her. The Love Witch is an amazing movie. It's incredible, and it's like you said, Nicholas, and it's a testament to her care that is just a beautiful movie, and it's so well made, and the costumes are gorgeous, and the colors are gorgeous, and the whole concept is, obviously it's steeped in feminism. It's obviously like a feminist parable, but it's also a horror movie. It's wonderful, but you can see like the care that's put into it when you look at the costumes, and you look at the sets, and you even look at like the car she drives, and just the makeup. Everything is incredible. So she during the lockdown, meaning during COVID times, her husband had encouraged her to write a novel. So she wrote this book called Bluebeard's Castle, which I have up there, but I won't grab it. But she'd written this book called Bluebeard's Castle, and knowing her work and knowing how much I appreciated what she does, I ordered it and I read it and I really enjoyed it. And I thought this might be a great opportunity to speak with Anna Biller, and we could talk about this, not only this book, but we could talk about her films, and we could talk about her her aesthetic. And it was wonderful. She was a wonderful guest. I was very, very fortunate to speak with her. Yeah.
So how do you approach each episode? I have my own way of approach. I have my rituals and stuff like that. I don't want to go through them, but every episode has an approach. So what's your approach?
Well, I'll tell you, like it's I was thinking about preparation. There's been times like, I talked about interviewing Momus, and I did a lot of preparation for that. I actually spoke to it, and I knew I'd only have him for 20, 25 minutes, but I did do a lot of preparation. I spoke to John Robinson, who is this British man who's written 2 books about Momus, and he's basically cataloging all of Momus's works. So he did like a book that started in the 1980s and went up to like the mid 90s, and his entire catalog at that point. And then he did a second volume, and Momus, I guess, had this dream that somebody at some point would do a deep dive into his lyrics and his album concepts, and kind of put this thing out, this sort of for hardcore fans. And this guy, John Robinson, has been able to do it. And so I spoke to him like, before the weekend, before I interviewed Momus. And then I sat down and I wrote a bunch of questions. I don't think the questions that John and I were discussing the possibility of asking really ever came up. But it was good to speak with him, if only to get an idea of, from a fan's perspective, what may be important and what may not be important. So I tend to do a lot of work with Tom Scharpling. I did even more work the first time I interviewed Tom Scharpling. I was so nervous, and
Tom Scharpling. I interviewed Tom Scharpling. I got everybody together. It felt like had a purpose. Like, like as a creative type, I just wrote the book. And I went nuts getting everybody together, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful kind of creative frenzy. You know what I mean? So when you, that's how we got together. We'll talk about Tom Sharp. All right, let's talk about your work first. We'll talk about Momus. We'll talk about Scharpling. But Andy is an author. You're an author, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, every author has their own voice, right? I don't know how you would describe mine, but I've been told that like it is New Jersey. It's independent. It's middle aged, raw, very emotional. Hard drugs, a lot of kinky sex, and endless music references. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a style. I like to think I have my own voice. I've been told I have my own voice. Every author has their own voice. How do you describe yours?
I try to write in first person perspective. I try to keep all the stories original. I like to throw as much as I can at a character in terms of objectives to overcome, obstacles. I don't know if there's a whole lot of growth in terms of my characters because my books aren't very long. They're usually 150 to 160 pages. But I suppose if there's any running themes, there's usually dark humor in them. I like that a lot. I'd say that there's probably a lot of sexuality at times, and especially, I think sex and violence tend to drive a good story. I think it's hard to argue with that. And I think a lot of times, especially like that Jade Suede book, was probably the most sexual and the most violent book I'd ever written, and I was so proud of it. I was really happy, and it was written from the perspective of a woman, which was different. I've done a couple books from the perspective of a woman, and writing about sexuality from the perspective of a woman is a challenge. I don't know if you've ever tried it, but if you're not one, I guess
Yeah.
you wonder how the experience is on the other.
No, it's great. I mean, just for sexual purposes or fetish purposes, put it that way. Sadism and masochism play an important role in proofreading, in editing, I think. So a lot of my editor for my 3 books, may she rest in peace, Miss Melissa. She was brutal. She was brutal, and she was very adamant about how I portrayed women, right? Because as a man, and I was very conscious that I want to be conscious about how I portray women, but I knew that I needed a woman to look at it before, because I'm a man. I don't have no right to write without doing that. You know what I mean? Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. So there are parts in The Coolest Way where it's not written from the perspective from the narration, but I'm telling the story. I'm telling the story as she told it, but I guess as an omnipresent narrator, it changes tones. It's mainly the whole book's written first person, but I struggle with that because I don't want to misrepresent. And one of the worst things, oh my God, I wrote creative writing. I remember I wrote a really pretentious story called like The Melancholia of the Soul Solidaritan about a woman who was alone. It's about a woman who's depressed, right? And one of the insult that hit me hard. Shout out to Shy Machine, the band Shy Machine, Denise from Shy Machine, we go way back. She said, "It sounds like you wrote a man writing for a woman." That killed me. That creative the creative bit of creative criticism. That like I never want to hear that again. So I've always taken to women. I'm like, dude, I don't make me sound that way. And one of the best things about, oh my God, the best things about my editor, she goes, you're not going to be Tommy Wiseau. You're not going to be Tommy Wiseau from the room. I don't want people to laugh at your stuff. So a lot of it is, I think, I personally think that authors should collaborate and get different perspectives because they'll come across, unless they want to come across a certain way, it's going to be read and it's going to be perceived a certain way. So I'm glad you brought that up. Now let's
Yeah.
talk. So what is Jade Suede about? Please tell us.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Jade Suede's about a teen runaway who becomes a prostitute and then eventually becomes a killer for hire. It's like I said, it's very violent, very sexual. I really had a lot of fun writing it. One thing I've tried to do in relation to what you said is I have a wife, so I can I can kind of run things by her in terms of in terms of the sexuality part of it, or trying to write from a woman's perspective and say, does this sound right, or is this right? Or am I way out of So she's good about helping me with that sort of thing. But yeah, that's what Jade Suede's about. Yeah, it's basically about a teen runaway who becomes a prostitute and then is enlisted to be a killer for hire, basically seducing and killing deadbeat um, loan people taking loans, like for a loan shark.
And I remember when I wrote The Coolest Way, you came out with I was doing a blog tour basically, and I had you come on for you you have a bunch of other books. Let's take a look at these other books. All right. So of course you had Wolfish Girl, of course,
Yep.
but the one Kissing Oblivion and Who's Afraid of the Virgin Wolves.
Yeah.
I remember. Okay, so let's go back. For those who are indie authors, you may find this interesting. Before there were podcasts all over the place, where everyone had a podcast, or like Tom Scharpling, it's legally mandatory for everybody to have podcasts, right? We had Facebook groups, and we had groups and stuff like that. So all the bloggers and stuff like that, all the readers, they'd have a thing called blog tours, right? So I wrote The Coolest Way. I got on one of these things, and my like hip hop, you got to put someone on, bring other people. I strength in numbers, right? And I knew you're an FOT. I know you and like your work. So come on. Were you ever on something like that before? Did you ever do a blog tour as an indie author?
No, I'd never done anything like that, and I was terrible at it, if I remember correctly.
No,
you were coaching me on the on the sly, but I had no idea what I was doing in trying to interact with folks on Facebook. But ultimately, I think it was helpful. I think I ended up giving away a free copy of the book, and I think whoever got it, read it and posted a picture of themselves reading it on the beach, and that was really flattering. So it was. I appreciate you including me in with that. Thank you.
And then throughout the years, and then you gave me this book, The Peeper and the Playwright.
Yes.
The Peeper and let's bring this back. Excuse me. So me, I'm in my own world. I'm trying to survive a liver transplant, navigate through life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh, my friend Andy wrote another book, and because I'm writing Your Kinky Friends, I am surrounded by sex. I'm surrounded by kink. So the title gets me. I'm like, oh, what's this about? And then Peeper, it goes to the best show. If anyone listens to the best show,
that's
there's
right.
a whole Peeper. We'll get to the best show. So tell us about The Peeper the Playwright.
It was that was I think 2022 or 2023 that I put that one out. Yeah, that was another one where I had a vision of I wanted to write about censorship and authoritarianism, and and basically I was, obviously I do not like either of those things, and I don't believe that art should be censored, and people should be able to read and create the art that they want to, whatever it is, the ugliness or beauty, whatever it is. We were talking about Harmony Korine a moment ago, where we were talking about we've talked about Virginie Despentes, or Virginie Despentes, as I was.
Oh God, I'm fascinated with her too.
Yeah. She is pushing the envelope, and she's wonderful. Her writing is excellent. But
and I there's a chapter in my book, Your Kinky Friends, inspired by her book.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Despentes.
So with Peeper and the Playwright, that's what I was attempting to do. Basically, writing about a small theater company in a community who are putting across some subversive material and finding the powers that be trying to shut them down at every at every at every chance they could. And meanwhile, the person who you're kind of seeing the whole story through the eyes of is a peeping Tom. And you that was basically just another angle. I've always kind of been one thing I think I suppose is like sexual, like weird sexual, I'd say kinks, I suppose. Maybe that's the best word to say. To have like a character with that is to me, it's kind of makes them more interesting and compelling, I suppose. Like in Who's Afraid of the Virgin Wolves, it was like a guy who was aroused by automobiles, and then in Peeper and the Playwright, obviously it's a peeping Tom. To me,
Voyeurism
that's
plays a major part in kink. I mean, think about it.
Mhm.
People look at porn, or people look, they go to blogs, they go to FetLife, or they just read and stuff like that. They want to kind of be attached. They want to see the moment, kind of experience the moment, but not be affected by the moment. They don't want the rope burn, so to speak, right? But they want to see the ropes. They want, and so I think voyeurism is a fascinating topic when it comes to writing specifically, because as writers, as authors, aren't we voyeurs? Aren't we looking at
yes,
the world?
we have to be. Yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
then another thing, one of your latest is 0% Juice.
Yeah, that is my
Tell us
latest.
about
Yeah, that
that.
came out in October, and that was a fun one to write. I hadn't thought about it, but like Who's Afraid of the Virgin Wolves was based. The characters were sort of like a gang of teens who were virgins, and the protagonist in 0% Juice is also a virgin. I hadn't put that together until just today in thinking about this, but yeah, in 0% Juice, it's basically like a doppelganger situation where there's this guy who's basically involuntarily celibate, who plays video games with his roommate and drinks iced coffee out of a can, and it basically works at a like a Costco like store, and doesn't have a whole lot of interesting things going on. But what comes to pass is there's a man that moves to his town who looks exactly like him, but who has loads of charm and loads of charisma and is able to seduce women, and then is murdering them by drowning them. And basically, obviously, the darkly funny story ensues when one is confused for the other. So
Mm.
yeah.
So you're very prolific, and as I consider, I'm a writer, I'm an author. I like poetry, like, so when I see, especially like a friend writing a lot, like it inspires me. It makes me like, I gotta get writing. I gotta get like, oh, what am I doing? Like it really, it's inspiring to me. So I want to ask you this: how? Or let me ask you this. Yeah, how do you think you make it you so you can be so prolific? Because being prolific is one thing, and having all these stories is one thing, but being able to execute them and get them out of your mind onto paper and then onto like a platform or something where other people can read it, that's a major task that people don't realize how tough it is. I mean, it can be easy, but like emotionally, everything has to be in place. So how are you so prolific?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been very fortunate in that I feel like I'll get ideas all the time. And sometimes I'm struck while I'm just doing random activities. I'll be at the gym on the treadmill and I'll just be hit with something. And what's been kind of I guess odd, but also very fortunate, is that I'm kind of hit with everything all at once. Usually I get an idea and I get a character, and then I get a beginning and a middle and an end, and I immediately stop what I'm doing and write it down. If I'm driving a car, I pull over and I make a note, and it doesn't stop there. I'm making continuous notes because I understand that you can't just, you know, two sentences does not a story make. You got, you need a lot more details in there. You've got to get other characters. But the base of the story I've just been able to generate, I think, like 0% juice, that one came to me like after getting out of the shower for whatever reason. Like I just stepped out of the shower and it all came to me and I said, okay, that's what I'm doing next. But I don't know. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's just because I've got an active imagination or because I'm reading a lot or because, um, maybe it's because my life isn't very exciting. I'm a guy who's been married for I've been married for 25 years. I work I work an office job. I'm not like jet setting around the world or something like that. I'm not I'm not
That's the beauty of
out
writing
there
and the beauty of
dating.
reading. Read a book, people.
Yeah,
Please read
read
a
a book,
book.
damn it.
So, all right, let's.
So I've been fortunate, just to put it that way. But yeah, as far as the execution, I suppose the biggest help has been like National Novel Writing Month, which is the month of November when I tried to get at least a first draft done. And then I edit the hell out of that until I feel like the book is as bulletproof and as good as it's
Mhm.
going to be. And then, like I said, it's never usually long because I got a full-time job and a family, usually about 150 to 160 pages, but I'm able to construct a standalone story that I feel is at least enjoyable to read at least 12 times, which is what I try to do for each one of my books before I let somebody else read them. I try to read them from beginning to end and edit each time at least 12 times. It's usually
I
13 or 14.
I would, oh my God, I would just read it and read it and read it, and then um, my editor, we'd read it to each other out loud.
Oh, that's
Uh,
great.
yeah, I'd read it to, and so we could do the tone and so I
Characters.
wanted it to sound, like I'm there talking with you,
Mhm.
like someone, you know what I mean? So there had to have been like a theatrical kind of feel to it in a way. But yeah, editing, like going back and forth, reading it out loud I thought made a huge difference. Let's change the subject a little bit. Stan Vladimir asks, if you could have any superpower, what would it be? And how would you use it in your kinky
Ooh,
life?
that's a great question, Stan. Hmm. If I could have any superpower, what would it be and how would I use it in my kinky life? I imagine, as far as kink is concerned, it'd be amazing to see through walls, wouldn't it? There'd be so many times that,
The Peeper and the Playwright.
there you go. Yeah. That would be a cool superpower.
See through walls, yeah. Yeah. Oh, Stan has another question, which I thought was very good. If you could rewrite 50 Shades of Grey, how would you change it?
Oh, well, I did read 50 Shades of Grey. I'd say I'd put a lot less product endorsements in it. I don't know if you noticed, but like
No,
the three things I noticed in that book, and I only read the first one, and I read it because somebody had bought it. Or no, I think my wife had bought it and she intended to read it because she had a friend who loved it. And this is obviously when it
yeah.
came out and was crazy popular. And my wife like tried to read it and just said, "This is garbage. I can't do this." And I am the type of person where I feel like if you paid for it, you should use it. And so I just said,
Mhm.
"Well, fuck it. I'm going to read this thing and I'm going to force myself through it, even if it's, I've heard that it's not great." And it wasn't great, but weirdly, I noticed this, and I'm sure anybody who's read the book probably noticed this as well. Like the product endorsements, like BMW is mentioned again and again and again. Apple products are mentioned again and again, and Nike. Like those are the three things that stood out to me while reading it. I was like, why the fuck is this important? Like I didn't understand like the brand uh mentioning the brands. So I suppose if I was to rewrite it, I probably wouldn't put as many brands in there. I just thought that was very strange.
Here's a review, 1-star reviews for 50 Shades. Mom porn and a cheap amateur one at that. Here. This is another one. Absolutely terrible. A sad day for publishing.
Oh dear.
Wow, these are bad reviews.
Mm.
Imagine a book with vampires and whips. No, seriously. Look, I am not a huge fan of. I don't give bad reviews. I only give good reviews. This whole podcast is basically good reviews of people because I don't want to write reviews for people. I want to have a show and start talking with them and celebrate what they're doing. You know, so I'm not really a huge fan of the write reviews. I'm not going to just trash for the Sage of Grey, but as someone who is a member of the kink community, I feel it's my duty. to say, read something better.
Yeah, explore indie authors for sure. I suppose,
Yeah.
you know, in some way, Nicholas, you could say like that book may have introduced somebody to writing in the same way that like the Harry Potter books introduced like a whole generation of kids to like reading, rather to reading, you know. And in that way, maybe somebody said, this is a good place to jump into something like this, and then, you know, branched out and looked for other things, maybe something more compelling, you know. I try to be optimistic when it comes to things like that, if only because it's so hard to get somebody to read a book. You know what I mean? It's like you think of all the things that we're competing with.
I would people, at least people are writing and reading. I'd rather have them read that than nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
people need to read and people need to write. So even if it's
I think part of the
and it got people part of discussing kink and discussing sexuality.
I was going to say, I think part of the timing with that book also, and this seemed to be Amazon's push, was I think it came out around the same time as like the Amazon Kindle, and the idea was you could read this book that had
without knowing
tawdry content, and like moms could read it at the beach and not feel like, you know, people were looking at them judgmentally. And I think
how about this?
It was kind of
go to the beach, sit right next to the lifeguard, and read this book, The Coolest Way to Kill Yourself. See if you get any head turns. See if see if they're doing their job as a lifeguard.
Have you ever, Nicholas, like put a paper cover on a book while you were reading it out? Because I have.
Oh yeah. Oh, like yeah. What is it?
Like when
kid? When as a teenager?
I don't know. Like as a kid, as an adult, because I know I did it as an adult. Like when that first book, like The Fire and the Fury, that first like anti-Trump book by Michael Wolff came out. Do you remember that?
Oh, okay. Yes, I do.
And I got it from the library and I was reading it, but I was like at work, and you know, you don't know about people's ideology and stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to start a conversation with somebody, you know? So I put a paper bag cover over the book. Also, I did that with the book Pimp too, by Iceberg Slim, you know. It's called Pimp. And which is an amazing book, by the way. If
Definitely.
you holy shit, that book is incredible.
Black gangster, right?
Yeah. And what's crazy is like you read it and you think to yourself, boy, this is amazing. This must have been in the 60s or 70s. No, that story is supposed to take place in the 30s. It's incredible, like how relevant it is to like what, you know, what we associate with prostitution and pimps and that whole lifestyle. Like that, nothing's changed really. But yeah, it's a brutal book, and it's obviously he'd said he'd written it as sort of like a warning because, you know, he'd lived that lifestyle and had obviously a lot of ups and downs with drugs and with the women and with a lot of violence, but an amazing story.
Now, one thing I find kind of interesting is the representation of cultures in film and media. So you, as someone who you don't live it like I do, you know what I mean? Like you were saying yourself, you know, you're married, you have, and a lot of the stuff is in your imagination and you write about it. And we were talking about how BDSM culture is represented like 50 Shades of Grey, you know, because it's the way it's written and stuff like that. And I'm saying it does not represent the culture. You know what I mean? So as someone who's kind of outside the culture, but knows about it, you're well read. You know media, you know culture. You're an intelligent, educated person, right? Do you think BDSM is misrepresented in books and media?
To be honest with you, it's hard for me to speak on that, Nicholas. There's certain things that I've like. One thing that I was awakened to, and as far as in media, and it has nothing to do with BDSM. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I can't really speak too much on that. I think you know, the 50 Shades of Grey book is one I'd read, but there was nothing else I'd really sought out. I think that there were some
stuff like Sid and Nancy. You know, you've seen Sid and Nancy.
Well, sure.
Movies, Preaching Converted, Personal Services,
Secretary with
Secretary, Storyvo, stuff like that.
yeah, I suppose like something like Secretary was titillating, if only because you saw the enjoyment of it on the part of the character,
Mhm.
the Maggie Gyllenhaal character. I think another one might have been I don't know if you know Miranda July. Have you ever seen her movie
Oh
The
yes,
Future? I think that might have been one where she. Do you recall that one?
I never saw that. Isn't that they find a cat or something?
Well, yeah, that's part of it. It's like the story is sort of narrated by a cat, but
There's
there's
BDSM in that movie. I've always I remember
I
I
don't
saw it at
know
like Redbox. I'd always I never got it.
I don't know if it's considered BDSM, but there's like a sexual scene where she's very much dominated by like an older man, and it's like this weird kind of I say weird. I probably shouldn't use that word. Um, there's sort of like this anticipation on her part in terms of the act where
Mhm.
she doesn't know what he's going to do next, and that's kind of it's titillating in that way. You're as a viewer, you're watching and you're like, what's this guy going to do? I suppose another example might be like Todd Solondz films, where that one storytelling, I don't know if you've ever seen that, but there's a scene
Which
in
one?
there between a black teacher and one of his female Caucasian students, and he wants her to call him the N word. And it's like, oh my gosh, the scene it's very, very tough to see. Um, but, and I like Todd Solondz, and I think what he does is often shocking but also very good at times. But that scene in particular was very, very tough to watch. So
So speaking of names and calling people names, what are the worst names for sex organs that you've seen used by authors? So I looked at these, right?
yeah.
So there's raw. Here's some of the worst. I just looked this up right now on
Mhm.
Bing of all worst things. I don't know why this browser goes to Bing. All right, here's some of the worst euphemisms for sex organs in literature: rod, member, vajayjay. I like
That's an
out.
MC Paul Barman coin term. Did you know that?
Yeah, FC Paul. I've interviewed him. He's great.
I
Oh, his
me
new
too.
stuff's amazing. Holy, have you heard
He's
Echo
keeps
Chamber?
going. Yes, I
That's
have.
a great album. Oh my god,
It's so funny because I think the
so good.
JJ has now been if it's like the etymology of that word now, it's now tied to a woman. And I heard somebody ask him about that, and he didn't seem to lay claim to it, even though it was used in one of his songs with Princess Superstar.
Now,
Yeah.
Hundreds of Beavers is a fascinating movie,
Oh
and
my
I've been
gosh,
playing
it's
that
great.
in the background.
I think that movie was made for like $50,000, and it's since made like
It's so low.
millions. It's like so profitable because it's
It
all
just
it's
keeps
all
going.
CGI. Yeah.
It just keeps going too. It's like,
It's that's an impressive film. I'm really
bud.
impressed with that.
So Andy, how's your
Mhm.
bud doing?
Every time I try to come up, if I'm having a character speak and talk about a sexual organ, I always think like, don't use a cliche. Let's see if we can just come up with something that is absolutely original. I think the one thing I ripped off once, and this may have been in 0% juice, and I'll cop to this now, but I referred to masturbation as shellacking the glacnoid. And the reason but there's a reason behind that, and it's and I knew I could get away with it. It's because do you know who the comedian Howard Kramer is?
Yes,
You know
yes,
that?
yes.
Okay. So Howard Kramer and Laura House and Chip, I forget Chip's last name, forgive me. Those three comedians had a show on MTV called Austin Stories in the
I was
90s.
watching it recently. It's
Are you
amazing.
kidding? It's the
Fucking
best.
great.
It was the best.
Hula Girl
Yes. Yes. Hula Girl. Oh my
and
God.
Neck Footer and Hula Girl. Oh my
Yes. It was
god,
the
that show
best.
was
I
amazing.
I actually my wife and
Tell
I
me
went to see Howard Kramer perform, and we had him autograph my VHS cassette copy that I taped all the episodes onto. But yeah, in that show, Howard at one point refers to masturbation as shellacking the glacnoid, and I loved it, and I never forgot it because I watched those episodes again and again. But I did
Well,
I did use it. I did
this
borrow
is a
that.
perfect segue. Shellacking the glacnoid is a perfect segue because you can't say certain things on the radio.
Mm,
And another word for something like that would be like whitewashing your hand. Do you
right.
know where we got that term whitewashing your hand from,
No,
Andy?
was that the best show?
That was the best show with Tom Scharpling.
The man who also referred to it as a pant rummage.
Pant rummage.
Oh my gosh.
Pant rummage.
The euphemisms were so clever. That's the one thing, like, I love
Scharpling and
Tom
Wurster are
Scharpling and I
amazing.
love Jon Wurster, and they're absolutely inspiring in a lot of ways. But I'd say one of the biggest ways is they're absolutely original every single
Yes.
time they come around to something. Yeah, whitewashing your hand may have been only used once, pant rummage I think had been used a few times, but yeah, so when you hear somebody, you realize that like part of the charm of like making something enjoyable to do or listen to and return to is being different each time.
Mhm.
You hear
I
comedians like tell a joke three different ways.
I was so touched by just the culture of the best show, and the creativity and energy that Tom Scharpling, Jon Wurster, and all of them, the whole team, created. That when I lost Lynn, I was so moved by their comedy, literally, like just the whole vibe, the energy of the show. Not only did it influence this show, but I wrote a whole chapter about them in The Coolest Way to Kill
I
Yourself.
didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's about it's about the Ramones call. So for those who don't know, the best show with Tom Scharpling is a radio show. It started on WFMU, and WFMU is a form for was a college station that broke out from the college bankrupt, or something happened to the college, and
Yeah,
it went
Uppsala
listener
College.
supported. Uppsala College, East Orange, and it went listener supported. Um, Kind of like a Channel 13 of radio. I like to call it that, right? And it's from New Jersey. I'm in New Jersey. It's great. So it was like a part of me. It was a part of our culture. It was like family. Felt like the radio station. Sharpling and Worcester created a town called Newbridge, which is very similar to Woodbridge, New Jersey, which is a place I was living at the time. So there's so many subtle digs, detailed digs at New Jersey, funny things that will resonate with people around the world because they're universal, but they're also very specific to New Jersey, and I think only New Jersey had to get that. Then there's the music, the love of music. So there's this fictional town called Newbridge they made. There's this love of music. So there are fictional bands that go in and out. There are fictional people who go in and out. And the Ramones stop by Newbridge every once in a while. Well, Marky Ramone stops by. And it's not really Marky Ramone. It's Jon Wurster, the drummer Superchunk and the Mountain Goats, Bob Mould's band. Also a writer. He's done some amazing comedy. Currently on tour, doing REM, with it,
Yeah.
REM cover band, amazing talent. And he calls in as Marky Ramone, the the drummer of the Ramones, who's trying to get the Ramones back together. And Joey's dead. And well, basically they're all dead, so they have 3 bass players and the drummer. Now, in the book, Lynn is sick, and we love the Ramones. She has no idea this is a fake call, and I'm playing this call for her. I know it's fake, and it's the last time I really saw her laugh like uncontrollably, and have this connection, and that made it incredibly beautiful. So since then, I wrote all about it. That would led me to eventually interviewing Tom Scharpling. I have a video out there. I did for Network Awesome, and I did shout out to Phil Connor from In the West, also the band Glacier, and the band Ex-Wife. They set up this beautiful studio, and we interviewed them. Tom Scharpling and the Best Show are an incredible force, not just in music and in comedy. He doesn't even know it, but his influence, I'm sure, influences kink, and people at dungeons and munches. Certain people know the Best Show, not everybody, but they get it, or we get it. They don't. That's
Well,
the way it
I
is.
think I mentioned to you, one of the last times that we spoke on the phone that surprisingly, because you were saying like, yeah, there's really not a whole lot of connection. Tom doesn't seem to have a whole lot. But Siri Dahl called into the best show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And,
No, he's
as Siri
an
Dahl, and
advocate.
Tom spoke with her, and it was some kind of anti-censorship thing, but you could tell, he knew who she was, and it was obviously worked out in prior to the show being streamed.
Yeah, and the
Colin as a
beauty,
guest.
it's generally a family friendly show, so
Mhm.
that's why it goes to they describe things as whitewashing your hand as opposed to because they're right. They're writers. They keep it creative.
Yeah.
That's inspirational. So it's let me talk about this. How is it personal life? There's creative, and then there's personal. Personal life. The best show has been, influenced on me because there's a decency to the FOTs, which I find so comforting. Like, oh, there's decent people out there. There's like seriously, there's a decency to every FOT I know is basically has a sense of a genuine decency, honor, a sense of love and creativity, and that makes me want to be that way as well. So that's the effect it has. Has it had any effect on your personal life?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say for the exact same reasons. Tom is a notorious crabapple and a curmudgeon about a lot of things, but you know, at his core, he is angry, in my opinion, or upset with all the right people. The folks
Yeah,
that he tends to.
righteously angry.
Yeah, he's like it's sort of like he seems to have a great barometer for who the good guys are and the bad guys are in
Mhm.
terms of popular culture, in terms of politics, in terms of you know anything. He just seems to have, like, in terms of just people running businesses, like he seems to have this great barometer for knowing who the creeps are, right
Mhm.
from the jump. I remember, I don't know if if you'd listened to the interview, I'd asked him about hanging up on Louis CK. Do you remember this?
No, 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 no. I don't remember that.
He was interviewing, shoot, Todd Barry, and Todd Barry was on the street, and Scharpling had Todd on the phone. And if anybody knows Todd Barry well, they know
Amazing
that he
comedian.
and Louis C.K. are good friends.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if they still are. They were at the
he
time.
destroys Louis C.K. too, like on his own show. Todd Barry destroys it. It's
Oh, does he?
very
I
funny.
didn't know that. Anyway, when Tom was interviewing Todd Barry, um, Todd had mentioned that he was meeting up with Louis at the time when he was, calling into the best show and shooting the shit with Tom, and then promoting some of his appearances. And then, Todd said, "I got to go. Louis coming." And Tom said, and Todd said, "Do you want to say hi?" And Tom said, "Let him say hello, and then I'll just hang up on him." And so it was it was the wildest thing ever. So Todd said, "Hey, say hi." And then he held up the phone, obviously to Louis C.K. Louis said, "Hello," like that. And then Tom just dumped on him immediately, and then didn't even bring it up and just kept going. And this was, before the allegations, before the whole, the pant rummage, as we say, whitewashing the hand in front of women who did not want to participate in that, that whole thing that he went down for in terms of, quote unquote, being canceled.
Yeah.
And I asked him about that. I said, did you have any kind of, like, because nobody knew anything about that. I just knew Louis C.K. as a comic who was, comparatively good in terms of, like, his delivery, in terms of his jokes, and in terms of his program. I liked his show a lot. That was basically supposed to be about the life of himself, like this life of, like, a New York comedian. But after all this stuff went down, obviously, opinions shift and turn. But I asked Sharpling if he had any prior knowledge of that, and he said, "Oh yeah," he said it was like a well known thing, and it was sort of like this thing that everybody knew, but nobody was talking about until these women came forward, But again, I suppose I only bring that up because it just shows the kind of, like, barometer that he has for that sort of thing, where he knows who the good guys are and he knows who the bad guys are. And I suppose that's an important thing to know in your life. It's like,
Oh yeah.
don't pay attention to the creeps, don't pay attention to the jerks, and don't pay them any mind. And the one thing that he's been saying as of late is eventually they will all go down in flames. And
They will.
it's come to pass that some have, and the monsters today will eventually go down in flames. And he's not a monster. Scharpling is wonderful. And I'll tell you, if anything else, as far as my personal life, the ways that he's been inspirational is that he keeps going. He doesn't stop. He and he's all 100% do it yourself. I was talking to Josh Seibert about this. He's a guy I do another show with, a monthly show podcast called Empathy at the Apocalypse that we've just started.
Do you get any feedback from anybody from your book?
You mean like folks from my past?
Yeah.
A recent interaction I'd had was a guy that I knew in junior high. It was like my best friend in junior high. Yeah. And he'd recently found out that I'd been writing books and I'd had a podcast, and he reached out to me via social media, and he was a good friend. And it was funny, if only because the last time that I'd interacted with him, we were 12, 13 years old, maybe not even 13, maybe 12. So I was reading his texts, and they all like, I in my head, it was a 12-year-old guy's voice, Yeah. And of course he's a 50-year-old man now. And when I finally got him on the phone, it was like, oh, there he is. He's all grown up. But I suppose in that way, it was a pleasant reconnecting with somebody, from the past. But I can't say that I've had incidents where it's been negative, where somebody has.
Maria Bamford.
I love Maria Bamford.
Maria Bamford has a great joke about meeting someone. He's like, I know you from the past. You're not funny. And then she goes, press debit or credit. That's all. So this person in the chat, named Joe Smith. I know who the person is. This person is a failure. Oh my God, a failure in life. His wife would basically tell his sister, tell her sister that he does not go down on her. So enough. And seriously, and this is a woman who I don't want to mention any names or anything like that. But wow, so they would complain about people talking about sex, about sex with me all the time, all the time, and people don't like that. People don't like that. I suggest get your life in order. Don't worry about me. It's actually, instead of what are you doing watching this or worrying about me, why aren't you making money for the people who need it, like your family, maybe your wife or your kids or the people who are sick in your family who need money, instead of wasting your time and energy. Don't get mad. Get money. That's the way I look at it. Anyway, let's go back to Tom Scharpling. Okay. So, what is the best Scharpling and Wurster call?
For me, it was the hippie. Was it like Hippie Johnny? Was that the one where it was like a guy that had like kids boxing up brake pads? Do you remember that one?
Yes. In the hippie commune.
Yes. Yeah. I think they may have done 2 calls with that character, but the first call I think was the best. And I remember like Jon Wurster saying like, you show me a kid that doesn't like boxing up brake pads, and I don't know that kid at all, or something like that. But yeah, I loved that call. I actually put it onto, because that was like way back in the day. That was like the mid-aughts. That was like 2004, 2005 maybe. And I put it onto, like I burned it onto a CD, just that phone call, and I would play it for friends. And I remember being in a car with a couple of guys I worked with and putting it in, and one guy in the car was listening, and obviously it's a contrived phone call, so it sounds like it's somebody speaking with somebody, and the guy said, is this real? But yeah, I love that. I think it was Hippie Johnny. I think that was the name of the character.
Yeah,
but I like that one. Do you have a favorite?
Do I have a favorite? Yes, the Ramones.
Okay.
The one where I write about it in the book. Oh, and throughout time, and actually writing in the book, the meaning behind it and symbolism for me changes, but it grows more intense, so to speak. It's where Marky Ramone calls up Tom Scharpling about his erotic novel.
Oh, that's right. Lady something or other, right? It was some kind of like
Lady
like Lady
not Lady
Guinevere or something
Charity,
like that.
Lady Waverly's Desires.
Yes, yeah. And they call it a bodice ripper of a novel, right? Is that
Yeah, but that's not the thing that I mean. Although I absolutely love that, I love that because I'm an author. I love being an indie author. I love writing, right? But another reason I love that is because the second part where he says we're getting the Ramones back together. And he's like, wait a second, Johnny's died, Joey's dead, and the way he goes at the rhythm and everything, and it fooled Lynn. It fooled and I write about it how
she thought it was really Marky Ramone.
Yeah, she's there because he nails it, and I didn't tell her normally because I love turning people on, right? I love turning people on to stuff. So normally, and I know she knows Ramones, and I wanted to be like, oh, it's fake, it's not real, but no, I didn't do that. And she was just I was taking her back from the hospital, so she was kind of sick, and in that, it was really special, and so it was an amazing call, and it became very symbolic because it deals with indie writing, it deals with indie authors, and deals with music. Yeah, shout out to Tom Scharpling.
The one thing I remember about those Marky Ramone calls, it would always be like, and Johnny just got madder and madder and mad, like every yeah.
Sunshine says, hi, Andy. Great to have you back on the show.
Hello, Sunshine.
Okay, so let's get into it. Momus. The astute perversions of Momus, aka Nick Curie. He's a fellow Nick. So music. How would you describe Momus's music?
Oh. He describes himself as an electronic folk artist. I don't think that's too far from the truth, obviously, but he does dabble. He talks about, when I spoke with him, he talked about Ballyhoo, an album that you'd mentioned was like sort of like his K-pop album. And he talked about how pushing into that genre was kind of a stretch for him. And I can understand it, that it was. It's a fun album for sure. And I understand that he probably made it because he's got a girlfriend who's very into K-pop, and but it was kind of him stretching outside of his boundaries. I listened to the first album, his very first one, just this past week, and it's remarkable, like the jump from that album, which is all like acoustic, right? All acoustic based songs. Circus Maximus. Thank you. Yeah. All religious, like so much religion in those songs, religious characters and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
Even like the cover, where he's like, it's a painting of him with the arrows, and it's like songs like Lucky Like Saint Sebastian, et cetera, et cetera. But like the jump from that to like the Poison Boyfriend, which was like the one right after it, it's remarkable, like the evolution, but I suppose it really kind of depends on what period Momus we're talking about, because like I said, that first album, I absolutely could hear him, being considered a folk artist. Cause again, all those songs were like based, around an acoustic guitar, but then you get into something like Folktronica, where it was pure like electronic, and it was electro pop or synth pop or, but then there were like, like even, like you said, like the Little Red Songbook, the song that we were talking about, or rather the album that we were talking about at the outset of this program, that was, it was all based around like a harpsichord, right? It was all like these instruments that sounded like, from not like the Victorian age, right? But, like the ages of the powdered wigs in England and whatnot, with like Mozart time, right?
Mm.
Terrible with that. I can't put my face. 17th century, right? Or 1700s rather. That's kind of like there were sex songs like, but based around that. That album Accordion. I don't know if you heard that one, but that was fantastic, and it was all songs based around an accordion. So like, while I understand it's like people like to have like a frame of reference, and they like to have a single source to like put it on, like, well, this is a person makes electro pop, or this person makes heavy metal, or this person makes whatever it is, indie rock, et cetera, et cetera. I think he's a harder person to nail down. I'd say indie pop is probably the best way to classify what Momus does, especially in his songwriting style. But as far as the genres, he can slide into anything. He's very good at that. It's wonderful. He's wonderful. He's just an artist that gives and gives. And I think it's primarily because he is so intelligent and so creative, and he's able to basically bring all these characters to life in his songs, and he's got a fantastic wit. He's just wonderful. Love Momus.
The very first song I ever heard of Momus was on a Creation Records compilation.
Mm-hmm.
I forget which Creation Records compilation it was, but I used to love the Creation Records compilation. This is before Creation Soup came out, so I was like on it, like when it was coming out. I loved that stuff. And it was The Complete History of Sexual Jealousy, part 17 to 24.
It's a fantastic song. Yeah.
And that song snuck out because Records is home of the Jesus Mary Chain. And
yes.
So a lot of the living room band. So it's I don't say jangly. Yeah, I guess jangly. There's a C86 sound, the jangly, noisy, shoegaze sound obviously was born from that. So there was a psychedelic noise in almost everything Creation Records came out. And then there's Momus.
Yeah, because you're absolutely right. That song is not like anything of what you just described.
I interviewed Momus so Momus came out, right?
Yeah.
I love that song, and I was into New Order then.
Oh, that's a perfect jumping on point then, right then.
And
if you're in the Pet Shop Boys or New Order, yeah.
I just got into Momus. I was like in a retro phase, I guess, because all of the Momus records were out of print. And I was also a drug addict at the time. So I hustled. All I did was just like hustle for records, right? And those Creation Records were expensive. So you go on eBay and you're bidding and stuff like that. And I collected them all.
You got all like Momus records on vinyl?
Yeah, vinyl and CDs too. Yeah.
Wow.
And so that Creation Records, that for some reason that stood out. And at first I knew that like it's silly enough that someone can make fun of it. Right. But if you get it, and if you're smart enough to kind of really let yourself in on the joke, because Momus is the god of mockery, right?
Yes.
So, then I believe you go for the ride. I interviewed him because these Creation Records were so out of print. I believe Cherry Red was reissuing them on Time Machine, software, Forbidden Software Time Machine. So I did PR for that. Interviewed
one
Momus.
second.
Yeah, it's an amazing album.
Hang on 1 second, Nicholas.
Mm-hmm.
I just lost my light because I was going to try to grab this for you. Hang on 1 second.
It's all right. Well, anyway, Forbidden Software Time Machine is a compilation of all of the, I guess, the best of creation, which is some of the best years they ever did. So I highly suggest that. So there's a difference between Creation Records and then the stuff on Le Grand Magistry, and that's when I started getting back into them. When Pulp came out, so I was really into Different Class from Pulp, and I wanted something European, a little too smart for its own good, kind of. I was going to Rutgers, was graduating Rutgers at the time. I liked the attitude about it. Like I wanted to feel the way I felt like when I first heard the Smiths. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
And, so I was feeling very Jarvis Cockery, right? I'm a fan of Lawrence and Felt and stuff like that. And I remember Momus, and I picked up Ping Pong.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's what got me back in the Momus. And when I heard I Want You, But I Don't Need You, I thought that was incredible. And
it's a masterpiece.
Shoe Size of the Angel, which I wasn't even that familiar with Hairstyle of the Devil.
Yes.
And then I did that whole loop. So I fell into this rabbit hole of Momus, right? I read this rabbit hole of Momus, started buying all this stuff, and I realized it's a very lonely music. It's very lonely music,
You mean
and
it's
I mean
lonely to
that
be a Momus fan? Is that what you're
I
saying?
mean that in a good and bad way. You know what I mean? Because there's beauty in loneliness, and there's comfort. There's the sadness of things, so to speak. I know there's comfort in sadness, as he said. And yeah, songs like Nobody. Some songs are
Yeah.
incredibly sad. See a Friend in Tears.
Yes. I never
Incredibly
think
sad.
about him as being sad, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, there's
Um,
so much sadness.
think about there's a song called Orion. Can't
I don't know
find
if I
it
know
on
that one.
Spotify, and I think it's a Jomas song. I don't know,
Oh,
but it goes no sex last night, no sex last night, and the chorus or the bridge, it goes, why can't I find someone to love me, or the dirty way I need to be loved? Why can't yeah
there's
that
Jonas.
I think
It's not on
um
that one though.
there's this
At least not on
great
my version.
sadness.
Yeah.
There's a great sadness, and plus, like as you were saying before, not many people like Momus as like a huge thing.
Or
Like,
they're not aware of him. Yeah.
yeah, but he's not arena music.
No, no.
He's intimate music, and that's a beautiful thing. That's something for it. Um, so finding someone who knows him, who knows about his work and appreciates his art is something special. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for sure.
Which makes does that make the art more special? I don't know.
He's
But
lived an incredible life. The Momus stories are just amazing. If you think about, like you mentioned, Le Grand Magistry, and I think
mhm,
about the whole Wendy Walter Carlos situation. I don't know if you know about that when he
I
wrote.
do.
Yeah.
Please tell us about it.
Oh, okay. This happened in the 90s with that Little Red Songbook album.
Mhm.
Momus had written a song called Wendy Carlos because he was a fan of Wendy Carlos, who was the composer of the Clockwork Orange soundtrack, as well as her own records like Switched on Bach and the Well Tempered Synthesizer and whatnot. But he wrote a song about Wendy traveling back in time and marrying herself as Walter, which was Wendy is a transgender person. At that time, dead naming I don't think was as prevalent, where they talk
No,
about how people who have changed their gender don't like to be dead named. Um, but this song was included on the album Little Red Songbook, and when Wendy Carlos found out, uh, it was problematic for her, and she sued uh, Momus and Le Grand Magistry for I don't know how much money, but I know that it took at least $30,000 of legal fees to get Le
we
Grand
got 30
Magistry out of
songs out of
trouble.
it.
Yes, and that's it. Yep. Nicholas is absolutely right. What had ended up happening, I'm always fascinated by this story, is that in order to bail out his American indie label, which was Le Grand Magistry, he made song portraits for 30 fans for $1,000 a piece, and basically would write from the perspective of these individuals, and that album became the Stars Forever album that had basically it was just the names of all these individuals, like basically making them stars forever because he'd written. So it's probably my favorite album of his. It's incredible, that Stars Forever.
The what's it the second song, about animal bears, that's incredible. The You're No Square with my chili hair.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Magnificent
Akiko
song.
Akiko Masuda, yeah. Animal
Yeah,
Affairs.
we do
Yeah.
have to wrap things up. I do want to say though, I interviewed Shazna too.
Oh wow.
Milky. Wait,
Yeah,
Milky.
Shazna
Yeah,
Nessa. Yeah,
yeah.
the Milky album
She's
is great. I have
yeah.
it somewhere. I
Jackie
love it.
Onassis, incredible song.
Holy
Jackie,
crap! I gotta find that out. Is that streaming anywhere? Sorry, I don't mean to get
I don't think so, but yeah, I do want to say
it's
I
all over the
interviewed,
place.
and the tape and like the recording got messed up, so it never got published.
Oh
So if
no.
Momus or Shazna is listening to this, and plus there was I had a rough life of just a lot of stuff, drugs, illness, uh, a lot of loss. Yeah, so please forgive me for that. I could try to salvage it, but it was not publishable,
Mm,
especially at the time. I do apologize, and because of things, I never had closure for that too. So I do want to get that message out there. I would love to interview you again. Make it right. Yes. So yeah, let's go on, shall we? Okay. Creation Records. Some of the collaborations. There's a magnificent collaboration he did with Brand Van 3000. More shopping. I highly recommend that. Get that. It's like a duet. Check that out. What's the best Momus song to introduce people to, like, to his music? Because he's so eclectic. It's so different. The styles are so wild.
I'd say "I Want You, But I Don't Need You" is a wonderful way to be introduced to him. Yeah. But additionally, I'd say if you're looking for like later period Momus, like "Folk Me Amadeus" is great, because I think most people know the song "Rock Me Amadeus," you know, and that's a fun one.
Oh, check out "Your Woman." He covered "Your Woman."
Oh my God, recently. He did cover "Your Woman," and he also covered "Get Me Away From Here, I'm Dying" by Belle and Sebastian. Like in the last like 48 hours, he posted that one.
All right, real quick, because we do have to wrap things up. We're just gonna go rapid fire. I usually do rapid fire recommendations. We're going to just do rapid fire moments. Okay.
Okay. All right.
So, rapid fire. Just keep on. We're gonna go back and forth, one after the other. 2 songs we genuinely love that people should check out. All right. I'll go start. Okay. All right. Hairstyle of the Devil.
Bishonen.
I was gonna say that next. Shoe size of the Angel.
Widow Twanky.
The Hotel Marquis de Sade.
The Last Communist.
The Laird of Inversnicky.
Good one. Hypnoprism.
I like to think of myself as the Laird, because I like when we're before the Manor, we're setting up parties and stuff like that. I like to think of that. I play that song and I feel like I'm setting up like this cool underground thing, like they are. It was like.
He's so much fun. This makes me want to listen to Momus. I'm just such a fan.
Yeah. All right, let's go. Who's next?
You want to keep going? Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, look at this.
Oh, beautiful.
Pornography.
Yeah. Did you say pornography?
Pornography.
Okay. Morality is vanity.
Oh, that's. The Day the Circus came to town.
Oh, I don't know that one.
And Circus Maximus.
Okay.
Great.
Life of the Fields. I don't think you would know that one, because I think that was a period.
I know that one. Yeah. Hang Low.
Oh, Hang Low's on that album too. Yeah, that's a great one. Shoot. I'm trying to think of songs that are on accordion. I think it's called.
Anyone. Just
I think it's called The Poet. That's a great one. Yeah.
What's the one with the new one that has the K-pop? Oh, there's Vocation.
Plastic Soul is on that Ballyhoo album.
Oh yeah, that's it. And the Tigers. What's the Tiger one?
Oh, I don't know, because I don't know that album really well. I've listened to it a couple times.
3 Trap Tigers.
Soul. Oh, cool. Codependency. That's on Yikes, one of his new ones.
Lucky Like Saint Sebastian.
There we go. Okay. Jean-Michel Jarre in Hicksville.
The Homosexual.
The Penis Song.
What would death be like?
I Was a Maoist Intellectual.
The Last Communist.
Oh my God, this is so much fun. Coming in a Girl's Mouth.
Who is Mr. Jones?
Oh, this song's so good. Old Friend, New Flame.
New Flame, yeah. The Complete History of Sexual Jealousy, Part 17.
Okay, good one. Is it cheating if I grab an album off the...
No.
Okay, all right, because I'm going to say... Dear Wife. Do you know that one?
Yes, I know that one. Flame into Being.
Flame into Being. That's a good one. Oh my gosh, there's a great one on this too. Details. Oh my God, that might be that's like the most heartbreakingly romantic, beautiful Momus song I've ever heard. It's like such a genius work. Details. That was on Isivu. Oh my God.
Nobody.
I listen to it over and over. Oh my God, nobody.
That's one of
Okay.
the saddest songs I've ever heard.
Really military. Yeah, nobody is brutal, man. I mean, brutal in the best way. It's a gorgeous song, but it's sad. Yeah.
Shaftesbury Avenue.
Ooh, good one. I Refuse to Die.
Yeah. Oh. All right. We have to talk about this. I refused that when I was going through the liver transplant, right?
Yes.
I have this burlesque number. We're going to end on this too. We're going to have this burlesque number of I Refuse to Die. So I'm trying to produce a show in my mind, even though I'm dying. I'm thinking I'm having my Bob Fosse, Joe Gideon, all that jazz moment. I'm hallucinating basically. So I'm in as my suit, but I have the gown on. I'm in a wheelchair, and it's very like a burlesque type of thing, death comes for all.
But
I plan to be out when it calls. Out
calls.
sunbathing in the snow. Don't tell death I told you so.
I refuse to die. Oh my God, it's so good.
So I was thinking about being in the wheelchair.
This is so Nicholas. I just got to stop you. One second. I just got to tell you, this is so fun to vibe with somebody live talking about Momus. This it never happens for me. Sorry.
So I'm in I'm in the hospital bed, and like I Want to Be Sedated video by the Ramones. Everything's really fast around me. Yes. So there are people, and I'm a kinky motherfucker. So I have kinky friends, right? So there are people like setting up like canvases and painting. There are people like cooking. There are people like doing all this shit in a hospital bed. And nurses and doctors are trying to take my temperature and take blood and all this stuff. And there are women in garter belts and corsets trying to distract me from dying. Let's put it that way.
What a scene!
And I get on the intercom, and especially in that third verse when it's all like muffled, it's like, you take your hourglass and your sight, and I get out of the wheelchair, I take the gown off, and I'm wearing a suit, and I refuse to die, and it would be a great number.
It would be
for Broadway.
I love it.
With that, we gotta wrap it up. So all right, you're gonna be back. We're gonna be back, right? So let me ask you this: we're all looking for something. Andy, where do you want your path to take you next?
Oh man, the manuscript I'm working on right now for what I hope will be, should I make it to the fall of 2025, which I intend to, it's the hardest thing I ever had to write. It's the closest thing to a memoir I probably will ever write, even though it's heavily fictionalized, just because I don't want to hurt the people that are still walking around amongst me. But 2024 was a brutal year for me in a lot of ways, and I want to get past the finish line with this. But it's not fun to edit. It wasn't fun to write, and it's hard to relive a lot of these things that I'm talking about in this book, even though, again, it is all couched in fiction. But my path is hopefully to cross the finish line and get this out into the world, and then move on to something much more pleasant.
What is the name of this book?
The working title is How to Saw a Man in Half.
That's a great title.
Thank you.
That's a great title. Andy Mascola, one last question. Please fill in the blank. Life is
good. It's good. It's not great, but it's good. I heard somebody once say sum life up in 4 words. I think it was like one of those hashtags, right? Life in 4 words. And some guy he nailed it. He said, "Oh no. Oh yay." I think that's pretty close. It's a lot of ups and downs.
Definitely.
Yeah. But ultimately it's worth it. It's worth it.
How can people get in touch with you?
If you're looking for my books, you can find them on Amazon. Just look up my name. It's right there. Right there. And if you're looking for them, if you don't like Amazon, you can find them on Google Play as ebooks in there. All my ebooks are just $2.99 or less. And so find me that way. I have a podcast called People Are the Enemy. I do it every Monday. I've been doing it every week faithfully, at least once a week for 7 years now. It's a lot of fun. I have interesting guests. When I don't have guests, sometimes I'll sing, sometimes I'll play clips I find on the internet. You can find me on most social media.
Wonderful. Everybody, please support the kink community. Kink helps kink. We are authors. We are painters. We are poets. We're musicians. We're artists. Ooh, it's a lifestyle. It's a culture. Not everyone is as kinky as you are. And your kink is not their kink, and that's cool. But please, let's continue. Andy, I hope you continue. I hope you continue what you're doing, and I hope you finish writing your book. Please
I hope you continue, Nicholas. I'm so impressed by what you built, and I had no idea what was coming when I read your chip black nail polish. I was like, "This is the same man. He's gone on to build this. He's been built on this kink empire. This is incredible."
Oh, tell me about that. Thank you. But please read books. Your kinky
read
friends.
Books.
Nicole's gonna kill yourself.
If you're,
I have like that polish somewhere.
Advice for anybody who's not reading a book. If it's because they've tried and they found them boring, it's just keep going. You just like anything in life, you've got to dig for the good stuff. There's good stuff out there. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Dig for the good stuff. You'll find it, and when you find it, you're not going to want to stop.
Think of it this way: there are books people don't want you to read.
Yes. I was at a Barnes and Noble. I was at a Barnes and Noble yesterday. They have a banned books table. Sincerely, read the banned stuff. That's the best stuff.
It's great stuff. In the words of Starla Vamp, very good friend. Shout out to Starla. I love you. The best kink goes underground. Sometimes the best books underground as well. Everybody, please go to Your Kinky Friends. Subscribe to us on Spotify. It's very, very important. Get 15% off all inventory at lockedinlust.com with the offer code YKF. Go to yourkinkyfriends.com, patreon.com/YKF. It's going to be a great week. Be creative, people. Get inspired. That's what life's all about. Be cool. Be kind. Keep an open mind.
I love it. That's a great ending.
Take care.